Hey guys, welcome back to the Gulf at Night. My name is Magdalene Tibbetts and I'm here with Sergei, Kelley, and today we'll be exploring the natures and wild of the Florida coast. Along the Gulf Coast of Florida, thousands of native species inhabit a stunning mosaic of coastal ecosystems. Some of these species serve as native keystone species, wildlife that helps stabilize and support a multitude of wildlife, such as the gopher tortoise, Florida panther, mangroves, and crocodilians. On the other end are invasive species that are introduced into the Florida wild from human activities such as escaped pets or shipping containers. From the Gulf Coast full of underwater seagrass meadows, coral reefs teeming with life, majestic sandy oak forests, and winding mangrove systems, this region is home to an incredible variety of wildlife, and today we'll be exploring that with an expert, Sergei Kelley, with a passion for showcasing the wonders of Florida's natural coast. He's the founder of Florida Keepers, an organization that gives a voice to the wild, advocating for nature when it cannot speak for itself. Whether he's running shoreline surveys, diving into coastal habitats, or trekking across estuaries, he's constantly documenting Florida's natural phenomena and its diverse species. We're so excited to have you in the studio today, and to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought your passion to Florida?
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. It's great to be here. Honestly, it's just exposure to Florida since being young. Remember, like in the Florida Keys and the flats, fishing there, and then just growing up, and now especially living full time in Florida. It's just several years. It's just seeing each year more of it's lost, and especially when you just spend so much time in the outdoors, you see things that you can't replicate through just telling someone, and it's just getting that exposure, getting that media, getting that film out there is great. But it's just such a sad story when we're seeing all that being lost, So just having that passion to be out there, seeing amazing stuff. I mean, Florida's pretty much the only place like it in the world, and we're losing it. So seeing it while it's still there and preserving what we can is really, really important.
Was there any literature, media, or other wildlife conservationists that helped you inspire to become what you are?
Oh, yeah. I mean, hands down for sure, Steve Irwin, the GOAT. Also, like more contemporary, Forrest Galante. He does a lot of like stuff with near extinct animals, and goes around the world. Kind of the same thing, just looking in the most crazy areas. So those two for sure have really, And obviously, I did college fishing and wildlife, so that was that background. But inspiration for sure, Steve Irwin and Forrest Galante.
Amazing. And what is special about the Gulf Coast of Florida to you?
I think honestly, it's just one of those areas where you have, because obviously it's a very slow slope compared to the other side, so it's a very different environment. I think obviously its mangroves are kind of its defining characteristics. It's mangroves, it's shallows. You have a completely different array of species. How would you say? For me, it's the mangroves. It's just that flat estuary ecosystem where you have things that don't exist anywhere else in the world, and also on the East Coast, it's very different.
Mm-hmm. So when you're exploring out there, how do you like to explore? Do you dive? Do you run? All that?
I like to do it all. I like to try to see what I can see if I'm running, diving, hiking, walking, whatever it is, wading. So obviously mangroves usually mix of diving or wading. Sometimes kayaking too. Like I'll kayak out to a place. If it's a walkable area that's good, I'll walk it. If it's a deeper area and I can go dive it, I'll dive it. So it's really whatever, because you're going to see different things when you do. Like the wading, you can get closer to rays and stuff, but you have to watch out not to step on them. When you're diving, you could get closer to, you don't want to get too close, but get closer to a manatee or a dolphin, because, they're going to hear your vibrations to the water when you're walking. So really adjusting it to whatever the animal is, and also to what you want to see. That's the beauty of it. You can actually kind of selectively choose which activity to see what animals.
And is that based on ecosystem, or do you go also at different times of the day, different seasons? What is like that?
Oh, for sure, both. For sure, yeah, ecosystem. But yeah, definitely, I mean, the beach at night, anywhere along the Gulf or on the east side is going to be very different at night. It's going to be different in a rainstorm. It's going to be different during a hurricane. I mean, like going right after a hurricane is one of the most interesting times to go anywhere in the ecosystem, because everything's thrown about. You might see an animal that's not supposed to be there. It just was thrown over there. So yeah, for sure. Obviously, at night you get a whole different array of things that you just can't see in the day.
What are some of the strategies that you bring to nighttime surfing?
I mean, honestly, a lot of it is.
Or precautions you use as well.
Oh, okay. Precautions for sure. I mean, one is just like the basics is having the right lights and having extras and batteries. Like especially if you're at night on the beach, you don't want to lose your red light or like have it die and then be, because you don't be using a white light on the beach. So stuff like that, which is basic. You have that ready. You have water, have all that stuff. Being good at, honestly, if you can have some familiarity with using the stars, the moon, location, where you're on the beach, or like sometimes I'll mark like where I entered the beach, either use a pin on my phone or just physically draw a line in the sand per se, and watching not only the water, seeing what could be approaching, but watching the shoreline, seeing what's on there, seeing what's coming down from the shoreline. Mangroves, obviously, if you're in the water, you got to be very careful because there's rays and there's stuff that can be moving right under you.
Stingray shuffle.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So also during the night, there's also invasive species that are pretty active, such as the feral hog or the Burmese python.
Yes.
Do you happen to see those often?
Yes. I've been charged twice by hog. Those are, I see them a lot. Yeah, they're very, very, you can get very dense areas where there's just tons of sow, tons of just groups of them where, I mean, they can readily breed. The sow can have tons of a litter, and then just within a couple of years, they're breeding, and then these areas really, like the state, obviously hunters can move some out, but again, it's so dense in some areas, obviously. Even just hiking a trail is one thing, but hiking through essentially like the bush, just straight through the wild, there's tons of them. Generally, though, if you get charged, just make yourself loud and yell at them, Burmese python, for sure. Especially they've gotten more. There's an argument that they're getting more of a stronghold on that west side of Florida, the western glades and up, essentially. Yeah, I've caught several of them. Had nothing too big yet. I want to get, a 16-foot this year would be great. But yeah, they're a growing problem, especially. And yeah, both of those way more active at night. And also at night, you have to be more cautious around them too.
Yeah. In current events this week right now is the Burmese Python Challenge that Florida does. So for a week, they host a challenge. I think it's no guns, no animals. You really just have to use your Florida wild hands. And there's prize money is it the person who catches the most or the biggest,
Yeah, there's a few categories, but yeah, it's like you want to get the most and the biggest. Okay. Yeah, that would be the goal.
So things like that really help control those invasive species populations here in Florida because they do outcompete so much of our natural wildlife. So I think that's really important. Earlier you were talking during your nighttime surveys you used red light instead of white light. Can you explain why you do this and how it helps protect our wildlife?
Yeah, so using the red light on the beach, it's a less powerful light than white light, obviously, and even on a person, but especially to animals that see less light than we do. It's going to be less blinding, and obviously, even with the red light, you don't want to be putting it on the animal too much, and obviously from a distance, and it's one of those things where you don't want to be obviously hitting the animal or like running into it or whatever, or just seeing it from a distance. Quick glance with the red light helps. But also one thing to note is obviously with red light, you're only going to see a certain array of colors. Generally, like for example, like yesterday I was looking at where a coyote had dug up a sea turtle nest. But yellow won't show up on a red light because it's too dark and it won't show up on the light spectrum. Right. So then if you look around, there's no animals, it's all good, there's nothing that you can blind. You closely use a white light on what you need to look at specifically, that's fine. And then I could see the yolks and the embryos just all laying there. So you definitely want to always have that red light, have extras, because you'll see people at the beach, maybe they don't know, maybe give them the benefit of the doubt, but either way, white lights on the beach are not the best idea.
And because a lot of those animals use the moon as a natural light, it can confuse them and put them off track, right?
Exactly. It's the same reason why like many parts of the state have the ordinances of how many lights can be near the beach. And those are really good at helping the effects of white light be mitigated.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What other precautions and mitigations can someone do who's either looking on the beach or a coastal habitat? Just as a civilian, what kind of precautions can they use when viewing wildlife?
I think the basic, honestly, I'll just start with know where you parked or where you came in from, because it's one thing to like, oh, I came in from this trail. I remember that like it looks like that entrance and there was this tree here. That's going to look way different when you've been out for an hour or two, you're a bit exhausted and you're trying to find your way back. So just making sure you know exactly where you came in from, wherever, from the beach access or whatever. For viewing stuff, you want to take things slow. Like, obviously, I run on the beach, but, like, if you're looking for wildlife, the best way is actually to be slower, to be more aware. It's not about, like, let me just, quickly, frantically look around. Like, let me rush into the water after something. It's just take it slow. The animal is going to be very cautious and not want to be near you if you're doing that. And, like, if you're waiting in the water, even at night in the mangroves, stuff will go right by you. So don't want to freak out. Honestly, if you're very skittish around animals, maybe take it a bit slower. But generally, animals will get close to you if you're quiet and calm. Obviously, stingray shuffle, all that stuff around, those type of animals. In Florida, yeah, there's parts that are certainly more crocodiles than other parts, but generally you're going to be pretty fine unless you're, like, going around, Cape Sable, deep in the Everglades down there. If you're around here or, like, on the Gulf Coast just parallel to here, chances are so low you're going to see a crocodile. If you do, though, it's awesome, and they're likely not going to go out and attack you, despite what we might hear.
Have you had any interesting experiences with alligators or crocodiles during your explorations?
Yeah, I mean, definitely more of gators. Like, I've had some get a little close. Like, I'm just, like, looking at it. They'll, like, turn around and investigate, and then you're like, all right, I'm going away. A lot of times, honestly, they're just sitting in the sun right in the trail. You go right by them. Like, it's been, like, a few, 13-footers. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but knowing that it's a big animal, it's just trying to get some rest. Mm-hmm. It's not trying to, like, gators don't actually consume that many calories, so they're not going out and try to, like, eat a deer, then a boar, then a person each day. They're just they can survive on one small meal for several days. And that's like most reptiles. They're not these huge carnivorous, animals that are trying to take out everything.
Yeah.
Crocodiles, not so much, just because there's less of them. There is a point around Cape Sable I'm trying to get to where you can see groups of crocodiles on the beach. Like if you pictured something from Australia or Africa, there's similar places like that in Florida still. It's just you have to go very deep in the Everglades. It's not going to be, you can see them about around marinas and stuff. There's a few famous crocs down there by like Flamingo and a few others. They're cool, but like seeing them in the wild, like picturesque is really the goal.
One precaution some might take is when in brackish water. A lot of animals can't see very well, and there are a couple mishaps that humans can get hurt. But that is just one of the things that you have to do when you're looking for wildlife, is you're in their habitat. Speaking of habitats, a lot of the wildlife habitat is getting destroyed due to overdevelopment. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially Florida's facing, there's been a few population booms in Florida. So I guess the biggest was during the after the Second World War and then during the Cold War. A lot of stuff moved down here, a lot of military families, and you had like those small, just local areas kind of grow up a bit more. And then the 90s, you had another one. But now what we're seeing, it isn't necessarily the same of like we need houses for people that are here. It's they're trying to build more houses than for the people that are still even moving here. Like Cape Coral, the housing market isn't even going that well. Like there's like 12,000-something homes that they're deemed unsellable, and whether it's by the property value, by this whole flood insurance mishap by the state and developers, it's making where we're not just developing for the sake of Floridians anymore, and it's so obvious that it's from, you could say, outside interest, just people trying to leverage, the debt, financial markets against Floridians. And what we're seeing is huge swaths of Florida, like the Gulf side, Panhandle, not as much, but still, but especially South Florida, and this side of Florida where people want to be. They're just building at a rate where they think people are going to come in and snatch those homes, but they're not. And especially we have a big concern with Floridians, and this is really a cool phenomenon. I think that's really only been birthed in the last maybe 5 years, even maybe 2, is it's a, what do you call, bipartisan, apartisan, people just realizing we can't have our backyards being stripped away like this at this rate, and we're having our politicians from the top, even local like county commissioners that are crooked, they're not able to see that, and more people are joining forces just to say, we don't care what your other beliefs are, but we need Florida to be somewhat Florida still. Because if we develop everything, and you probably know this, you go by developments and these new stuff, and it's just not Florida.
Yeah.
And it's not wildlife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is really about staying together as a community, no matter party or belief, and working together. What are some of the things that people can do to protect these species' homes?
Yeah, I mean, so on the first part is like your own individual action, like just being aware of what's out there is good, being responsible when you're out in the wild. There's tons of conservation organizations that you can either help or give time to. There's marine ones like, Moat. There's Sanibel ones. There's Loggerhead and West Palm. There's a bunch of Gulf Coast ones. You can just look it up on Google Maps or in your area, wherever you are, honestly. And they obviously, donations, time, volunteering, all that. On like the kind of being more civically engaged, for sure, a lot of these decisions happen not by your state representatives, but by just your local townships, your city councils, your county commissioners, and you'd be surprised what those zoning decisions are. So even if you're able to take, a couple hours out of your Tuesday and go to a local government meeting, it can have a huge impact because some of these politicians, let's assume their heart isn't in the worst place. Giving them more of a reason to be on the side of Florida is always going to be better. Maybe they're looking for a crowd, like a good stand, like, oh, I have to realize that these are what people want, and I can't just play this middle game of, either pro-developer, wildland developer, or just, you see a lot of politicians kind of playing the middle road. We're like, I don't know enough. We'll let them develop. Oh, no, my bad. So giving them a reason, like, no, this isn't okay. So, and again, it can be an hour meeting. You go there with this either sign, you're respectful, all that can mean a lot.
Awesome. So educating yourself, standing up for it, and just showing up.
Yeah, and like word of mouth too. Just like, I mean, a lot more Floridians are connecting online. Obviously, social media is big now, but just face to face, telling more people like, I saw this new development. Did you hear about this? Oh yeah, and then organize something. Okay. Yeah.
Are there any legislative bills that you want to talk about?
Yeah. So right now, like the most recent one. So Senate Bill 180.
Okay.
So they pushed that through, and there's a bunch, but this is the most recent one that's probably most pertinent, is that one. The idea was we want to help speed up hurricane recovery. So we're going to help cut some red tape, which would inadvertently and now explicitly help developers essentially build and do what they want. The problem is, and this is like from where I'm coming from, my perspective, from Florida Keepers and many others are saying this is a next step in the line of some system of the state they're using to develop more of the state. First, it was the state parks fiasco last year that was, finally defeated. Then it was the guana thing with the land swap, stuff with certain departments of the state. But this is the latest measure where it's like, now what they want to call burdensome are the most recent, like civically passed. For example, in Orange County, they passed the rural boundary last November. 73% of people voted for it, like in favor. So it's democratic. It's very obvious. This bill would essentially say that could be a burdensome measure towards hurricane damage repair. So we need to like get rid of that, override it. So what would really happen is a developer could come in and be like, well, let's just build here and like we're going to take out this burdensome law. So that's one where it's just, and it's really weird because it's like Florida, whatever side you're on, it's like, this is the free state, we love it, we like our, whatever. But we're seeing Tallahassee, we're seeing these state politicians take more and more away from local areas, especially local areas that are resoundingly pro, wildland. And it's not just wildland anymore, it's agricultural land that either what used to be citrus or still has cattle. And obviously, probably well aware, but like cattle being on land is still way better than, 5,000 townhomes.
For sure.
Especially if you want to rewild it or add it to the Everglades or add it to a park. It's a very big difference.
Florida ranches have been around for centuries, so.
Oh, yeah.
Townhomes, not so much. Well, Sergei, today I think we've had a great conversation about our native and invasive species, what we can do, what problems they're facing, and it's been great having you in the studio.
It's been great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So for our listeners, you can find Sergei on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You have your diving profiles and your regular profiles and your Florida Keeper profiles. So make sure you guys go check that out. You can really learn a lot of things and see wild Florida in action. So I think that's a great way to stay informed.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. And we will see you in the next episode.